Hello and welcome to the Farming Today podcast with me, Charlotte Smith. In this episode, the start of a landmark water pollution court case and why a sea use framework might help fishing communities. But let's start with agroforestry, which in simple terms is farming with trees in the mix. So putting pigs into an orchard or planting fruit trees in an arable field to provide windbreaks and food. I confess that when I first heard this term at a conference many years ago, I honestly didn't think it would catch on, which just proves how much I know because it is increasingly popular. Well, this week here on Farming Today, we're going to look at how farmers are using it. I spoke to Ben Raskin, head of agroforestry at the Soil Association, which certifies and represents organic farmers.
Climate change is really starting to bite for a lot of farmers, and trees are a fantastic buffer for extremes. So shade, shelter, browse, extending growing seasons, all of that sort of stuff. I mean, actually, 200 years ago, all farms would have been agroforestry farms in a way. We've forgotten and separated forestry and farming, and I think that's been the challenge. And I think now there are a significant number of farmers practicing it. There's places to go and see it and be inspired by it. So I think there's an element of seeing is believing.
So on a purely practical level, how does it work if you've got a field without any trees in it?
Well, the first step I would say when I'm working with farmers is to look at what you've already got and see if you can manage them and use them better. So hedgerows are a classic example where traditionally we have flailed them every year and kept them short and neat and tidy, but they don't really provide that much benefit. And if we can let them grow taller and wider, then suddenly they start producing shade in the summer and shelter when it's windy. There's biodiversity benefits. They'll be dropping lots more leaves onto your soil, building soil health, that sort of thing. So that's the first step. But then there's also lots of other ways to integrate. You know, that you could put in rows of trees, which is sort of what a lot of people think of as agroforestry, where you have sort of an alley system. But there's also, you know, using corners of fields as browsing blocks. You can build bigger shelter belts. You can even start integrating your livestock into your existing woodland where you've got patches of woodland. So there's a almost infinite number of designs and systems you can start trying.
What about the economics of this? Trees aren't cheap, and obviously it's a new system of farming for lots of people. How does it work out financially?
There clearly is an upfront cost that is hard for farmers to find at the moment. Having said that, there is funding available. It doesn't always cover the entire cost of the planting and the materials. Things like willow or saplings of native woodland, I think they're relatively cheap to buy and put in, whereas if you start buying walnut trees and specialist fruit trees, they get more expensive. Certainly one of the areas we're working on at the Soil Association is trying to find and build the economic case for different situations and scenarios so that farmers can really have the confidence that that money that they're putting in up front is going to provide a return.
Ben Raskin, more on agroforestry all week. Now, fishing, and over recent years there hasn't been much love lost between the industry and governments. A new report from MPs highlights low morale and a lack of trust in officials amongst fishing communities. It also says that a £360 million fund aimed at helping coastal communities is unfocused. With increasing demands on coastal areas, MPs on the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs (EFRA) committee also suggest a sea use framework, like the land use framework, should be developed in conjunction with people who live and work on the coast. Mike Cohen is Chief Executive of the National Federation of Fishermen's Organisations.
The fishing industry's had a number of setbacks at the hands of successive governments. We saw what happened after the exit from the European Union. Lots of things were promised and they were not delivered upon, apart from the prospect that 5 years after the Trade and Cooperation Agreement was signed, Britain would regain control of its waters and would be able to choose to negotiate annually access for foreign fishing vessels into UK waters. And then last year, this government gave that away as well. And we gave away access and £500 million of fish a year for 12 years. And then government then told us we should feel grateful for it. So it's hardly surprising that relations have been strained, to say the very least.
Now, at the same time as that 12-year agreement was announced, the government also announced this £360 million fund to be spent over 12 years on coastal communities. This report describes that as unfocused. How is it working?
We have yet to see. The fund has just opened earlier this month, and we will see, I think, at the end of the first year, what that grant money is allocated to. It's a good thing to have. It's a great thing to have some funding that can go into projects to help the sector and help those communities. But we really have to see how it gets spent before we can cast judgment.
The report suggests spending more of the money now, so front-loading it on things which, as you say, would help the fishing community. What sort of things would be useful?
There are a variety of suggestions that we're working on within the industry around education and training, encouraging new people into the industry, safety projects relating to existing fishers as well as people coming into the industry, health improvement projects, things that necessarily will take time, either take time to initiate and to get running, or will be most effective if they can run across a number of years. So that's what we want to see, that sort of sensible long-term investment that will help industry to grow and help communities to be more secure, more sustainable and to thrive.
Now, one of the other things that they raise in this report is the idea of a sea use framework, a bit like the land use framework that we had recently. What do you make of that idea?
We have wind farms being built, we have gravel extraction, we have communication cables, electricity export cables, the MOD uses parts of the sea, there are shipping anchorages. So many things are happening in the sea and are regulated by different parts of government and are subject to different government plans without any central coordination, without any strategy. We've been calling for a strategy for the use of the sea for a long time now, and I think this is what the committee is driving at with its suggestion of a sea use framework. If we could have a more strategic overview of how we're going to use the sea, then fishing will not always, as it is at the moment, just be left to occupy whatever space remains. We can't continually be moved around the sea, shunted from one place to another as a bit of sea area is taken away and given off for another purpose. We can't survive like that. That just simply isn't how fishing works. So a framework for strategically planning how the sea will be used in the national interest is exactly what we need.
Mike Cohen from the National Federation of Fishermen's Organisations. A landmark legal case over water pollution gets underway later today. Thousands of people are part of this case, which claims that chicken farming and sewage spills are causing pollution in 3 rivers, the Wye, Usk and Lugg. The case against chicken producers Avara and Freemans of Newent and Welsh Water will be heard at the High Court in London. All 3 firms vigorously deny the claims. 4,500 people say their lives, businesses and health have been affected by pollution in the rivers. BBC Midlands investigations reporter Nicola Goodwin explained why this case is different from others involving river pollution.
Because of 2 things, the number of people who've joined this claim and also the scale of the rivers and their catchment. Now, the River Wye is 155 miles long. It runs from Wales into Herefordshire, Gloucestershire and then back into Wales and crosses through some of the best farmland and soil in the UK. And also 4,500 people, it's a lot, they've added their names to this claim. And that makes it the largest case of this kind so far to be heard in England and Wales.
So what does this claim allege then is polluting these rivers?
Well, the case starts at the High Court today. It's led by Lee Day solicitors, and they will argue that chicken production by Avara and their subsidiary company Freemans of Newent and Welsh Water's sewage system have caused the river pollution. Now, all 3 firms strenuously deny the claims. What is not in doubt is that the pollution levels in the rivers have increased in recent years. All 3 are protected by laws as they're home to rare fish, mammals and plants. But the Wye has been downgraded to unfavourable declining recently by Natural England. And that is due to algae, which is caused by a number of things when they come together. The warmer water, sunlight and fuel, such as nitrate or phosphate. And that algae affects the oxygen in the water and can badly affect things like insects, plants and fish. Now, Nathan Jubb has fished on the Wye at Redbrook in Gloucestershire for 50 years. He works as a gillie guiding anglers.
It's horrible. You can smell it. You can smell the algae. You can go into a foot of water and not be able to see the bottom of your wellies. You can lose your hand sometimes in 4 inches of water. I didn't make any money last year. We caught 2 fish. In fact, it would have cost me coming down in petrol. On a good year, if we didn't have the algae conditions, we'd still probably be looking at 50, 60 fish. It's totally the conditions that are killing us, and that's due to what's going in the river.
What then does this case say about farming?
Well, the legal case argues that the pollution is caused by both chicken muck spread on land as fertiliser, which could run into the water when it rains, and also human sewage, which is being released into the rivers. Now, the case will say the phosphate and nitrate, which is contained in both, are causing more algae. Now, Avara are one of the biggest poultry firms in the world. Freemans, which is part of Avara, manufactures chicken feed that contains phosphate and nitrate. Now, there's a huge demand for chicken in the UK, and lots of it is farmed in this area. Almost 24 million birds are being produced in the Wye catchment at any one time, and Avara employ thousands of people and partner with hundreds of farms. Now, Avara say the legal claim is based on a misunderstanding and not supported by scientific data. The firm says the Environment Agency's data is showing a downward trend in phosphate levels, and the firm goes on to say that river health is influenced by multiple factors that they say are unrelated to their operations. The claim's also about Welsh Water, humans. The firm says the case is misguided and it's invested more than £76 million in the past 5 years to improve the water quality on the Wye, the Lugg and the Usk. They go on to say that any financial penalties will directly reduce the funding they have available to invest in essential services and deliver the environmental improvements that the customers expect.
When can we expect a verdict?
Not for some time. Now, today's hearing is the start of a very long legal process, and it's up to a judge to decide who or what, if anything, has caused the pollution in these rivers.
Nicola Goodwin there from BBC Midlands. And that's it from us. I'm Charlotte Smith. The producer is Beatrice Fenton, and Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.